Alright, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And today we are going to cover a new chapter, which is on the internal audit. One of the important elements when we talk about internal audit is that these are the issues or concerns that we are going to focus on into the internal aspects of the organization. In the previous chapter, we have already discussed in terms of the external audit, in which we are looking into the external environments of each of these organizations that would have some effect towards the operation, towards the development of sustainable competitive advantage for each of those organizations. So in this particular chapter, these are some of the learning objectives that we are going to discuss. So if we look into these learning objectives, they are focusing on the managerial aspects of the organizations, for example, like the management, and then on the marketing part, and then on the finance and accounting, and then on the role of productions operation, and then R&D, MIS. Why are we focusing on these areas? Because these are all internal areas. So meaning to say that these are all controllable elements within the organization in which the organization can in which the organization can improve any of these aspects in order to create or develop its in-house sustainable competitive advantage. So before we move any further into the discussion, especially towards the development of the internal competitive advantage of the organization, so let us refresh our memories towards the key words that we have already discussed repetitively in the past. The first one, we talk about distinctive competencies. So this is a firm's strengths that cannot be easily matched or imitated by the competitors. So this is the element that the organization needs to develop. They need to have and own this distinctive competency, because from this distinctive competency, they can contribute towards the development of competitive advantage that is sustainable. Building competitive advantages involve taking advantage of the distinctive competency. And one of the question in the previous final exam, I could not remember which semester it was, but one of the question they gave the students this figure: weaknesses, and then you turn into strength, and then you turn into distinctive competency, and then this will lead to the competitive advantage. So one of the important thing that we can learn from this simple figure is that the competitive advantage that we are talking about can be developed by identifying your distinctive competency. So the first thing first, if you want to develop your competitive advantage, you must be able to identify the differentiation part of your products or services or something within the organization that is different than the remaining of the competitors in the organization. And then this distinctive competency could either come from your strengths or even from your weaknesses. Maybe something that you are not good at, and then if you continuously improve on that product or services, could turn into a strength that cannot be imitated by the competitors, or that cannot be easily matched by the competitors. So we talk first about the process of performing internal audit. It is pretty much the same as the process of conducting an external audit. Requires to gather, assimilate, and prioritize information about the firm's management, marketing, finance, accounting, and these are all internal operations. These are all internal aspects within the organization. Again, why do we have to look into this area? So when we talk about internal audit or internal analysis or internal strength, so it must come from any of these departments within your organization, and then provides more opportunity for participants to understand how their jobs, departments, and divisions fit into the whole firm. If in previous chapter we talk about industrial organizational view, a view that contains that external factors are much more important than internal factors in order to develop sustainable competitive advantage. However, in this chapter, since the main topic focuses on the internal aspect or internal analysis of the organization, so one of the theory associated with that belief is resource-based view. So resource-based view is the opposite of the IO perspective, in which it contends that internal resources are more important for a firm than external factors in achieving and sustaining competitive advantage. So what does it mean is that so we have two different perspectives. IO perspective states that external factors are much more important. And now in this particular chapter, we talk about RBV. So the RBV resource-based view suggested or proposed that internal resources are more important for a firm than internal factors in achieving and sustaining competitive advantage. So when our managers or the owners of the company believe in the RBV view as a means towards developing a sustainable competitive advantage. So what they will do is that they will give more focus on the internal resources. They will they will try to develop, they will focus more on developing their own internal resources, because they believe these internal resources could be the factor that leads towards competitive distinctive competency that could turn out to become sustainable competitive advantage for the organization. So what are the resources? What are the categories of internal resources? So the RBV contend that organizational performance will be determined by internal resources that could be in the form of physical, human, or organizational resources. So we talk about first physical resources. It could be in terms of your machineries, your equipments, and then physical resources, and then your location of the organization. Sometimes people like to go to coffeeology because of the ambience, because of the physical resources. It looks nice, it's cozy. So maybe that could be one of your internal resources, the main one. And then sometimes it could be in the form of human resources. And that is why we are willing, some of the football team, they are willing to pay millions of dollars for certain players because they consider that them as as the most valuable players in their team. Yes. And then we talk about organizational resources. It could be in terms of your raw resources. Maybe you own the whole farm of coffee farm, for example, like coffee bean. They own majority of the coffee farm in Panama. They own the whole farm. So that could be their organizational resources as part of their distinctive competency or their sustainable competitive advantage. So when they own the farm, so they don't have no issue in terms of the resources, the raw materials. They can maintain the quality, they can maintain the standard. So that is considered as one of the most important organizational resources. So what does each of these resources needs to have in order for them to be considered as valuable? So for any of those resources, we talk about physical, we talk about organizational, we talk about human. So the resources could come from any of these three categories. And then what are the things that they must possess in terms of the criteria? Number one, each of these resources, any of the category, number one, it must be valuable. If it does not valuable, so it is very difficult for you to develop that resources into a sustainable competitive advantage. Valuable in the sense that he or she is the most top player or the best player in the field or in the sport. So that's why they are willing to pay them a ridiculous amount of money in terms of their salaries. And then that's why sometimes some organizations are willing to pay the CEO hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars in terms of their salaries, monthly salaries in a particular organization. Sometimes even the vice chancellor for a certain university, they are being paid up to like 250,000 per year or up to 1 million per year, depending on the level of the university. Number one, it must be valuable. Number two, it must be rare. Rare in the sense that it is not generic. And that's why, again, we are willing to pay certain players a higher amount of salary because they are very, very rare. We talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, Lionel Messi, and they receive a handsome amount of income. And then number three, because number rare we consider as number two, number one valuable, number two rare, number three imitate, hard to imitate. If it is easy for the competitors to imitate, so it cannot be developed into a sustainable competitive advantage. How can we protect this particular factor? One of the way for the organization to protect their resources so that it is not going to be easily imitated by the competitors is that they need to develop they need to apply for the copyright, for the trademark, for the patent, so that nobody else can copy. And then number four is not easily substitutable, meaning to say that resources cannot be easily substituted by any other replacements. For example, we take for Johara Pagi di Era. Those three combinations which led by Johan, that is something quite valuable and rare because there is only one Johan and there is only one Johara. The combination of them cannot be easily imitated. They try different radio channel. They try to do the same jokes, the same theme as what they did at Johara, but I don't think that they can be up to the same level as the combination of Johara, and they cannot be easily substituted by any other trio of DJs in other radio channels. If we look at Sinar FM, they try to use Sepah tu punya comedians, Jeb, and then Rahim and dengan Anga, for example. But they can't match the ability of Johan to create jokes, to personate different personality, to play on different roles. That's what I'm trying to say. And then because of that, they are paying Johara, all the DJs much higher as compared to the rest of other DJs in the radio channel. And then these characteristics of resources are called empirical indicators. These enable a firm to implement strategies that improve its efficiency and effectiveness and lead to a sustainable competitive advantage. So this part, the integrating strategy and culture, number one, how can you ensure the successful implementation of your strategy? You need to have a strong and supportive culture. If the culture within the organization does not support whatever vision and mission that you are trying to do, and if the culture does not in line with the pursuit of your strategy, there is no way that the strategy could be implemented successfully. There is no way that it would contribute towards the development of sustainable competitive advantage within the organization. So there are what we call as organizational culture is a pattern of behavior that has been developed by an organization as it learns to cope with its problem of external adaptation and internal integration that has worked well enough to be considered valid and to be taught to new members as the correct way to perceive, think, and feel. So it must be embedded into not only the mind, not only into the beliefs, but also in terms of the attitude, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we perceive things. So that's why one of the culture dekat dalam Starbucks, kalau kita tengok, to create a friendly type of culture. So that is why when we entered Starbucks, each of the employees will greet you. Because of why? Because that is part of their organizational culture. So these are some of the cultural products that has been discussed in the textbook. Alright, we will stop here first and then we will continue in the next video.